Presidential Reconstruction.
At the end of the Civil War, the South was devastated by all the damage done from the war.
Their farms had been burned, their towns were destroyed, and the brothers and fathers who had gone to war didn't all come home.
The southern states would have to be rebuilt in the years after the war.
This period of time is called the Reconstruction. What is Presidential Reconstruction and who was behind it?
The Presidential Reconstruction was the period of time when Andrew Johnson, following Lincoln's assassination, implemented his plans for the Reconstruction while the Congress went home at the end of the session. Andrew Johnson, a Democrat and our 17th president, was extremely stubborn, and he wanted to do things his own way. As a strong believer in states' rights, he gave each southern state just a few instructions. 1. Destroy their secession papers. 2. Write a state constitution that abolished slavery. 3. Have 10% of their population swear loyalty to the Union. Is that all Andrew Johnson did to help?
Besides that, Andrew Johnson did not do much to help the South. The only thing he prevented was former Confederate generals having a position in the government. He also vetoed the legislation founding the Freedmen's Bureau when Congress tried to create this organization. The Freedmen's Bureau was an organization that provided food, shelter, clothing, land, education, and jobs for former slaves in the South, as well as anyone else struggling from the war damage. It was a good idea, and Congress was outraged when he vetoed the bill. He refused to get involved in any legislation involving American society and protested that the Freedmen's Bureau would prevent the ex-slaves from becoming self-sustainable, and also that no organization had been established to help struggling whites. And so the South became a violent place to live for blacks. Wait a minute, why was it violent? Didn't Johnson make sure they were protected in the state constitutions?
Remember, Andrew Johnson only gave them a few instructions, and so the southern states were allowed to make any rules they wanted. That's how the Black Codes came to exist. These laws prevented the former slaves from doing almost anything that whites were allowed to do, owning weapons, getting a good job and good salary, owning property in town. During this time, the Ku Klux Klan, or the KKK, was also formed, and with no police to stop them, they were allowed to terrorize and kill hundreds of people who were different from them, including blacks. Why didn't someone prevent all this? Didn't Congress have something to say about it?
During the time that Congress was out of session, Johnson decided to implement his own plans while there was no one to stop him. When Congress came back to D.C. after a few months, they were outraged at how little Johnson had done and how things were actually getting worse. Eventually, Congress took over, reestablished the Freedmen's Bureau, and sent troops to the South to protect the blacks and got rid of the Black Codes.